there, Roto Scouts baseball fans. Welcome to the MLB DFS Lineup Card live show. My name's Terry McBride. The website is Roto Scouts. All you guys in the chat probably already know that. Looks like we've got a good crew hanging out already this afternoon. I'm sure more people coming in and joining us. I think it's going to be a really fun slate. Good one to talk through. We've got, let's see who's in the chat first before we start talking about the thing. Chuck Deuces, why does your logo look like a giant slong wearing glasses? I admit that would be a big head, but it's possible. Is that what it looks like to you? I feel like that's maybe a Freudian thing for you, Chuck. To me, it looks like a guy holding some binoculars, maybe an arrow pointing up. I could see where you could get to a mushroom, maybe, something like that. So I don't see it as that big a stretch, but I think you might get some Freudian psychology slipping through there for you, Chuck. I'm not sure. Maybe that's your thing, and no judgments if it is, but yeah, I see a guy holding some binoculars and maybe an arrow pointing up in the logo there. I know Chuck's just joking around. Stephen B's in the chat. Fanatics in the chat. Brian C is in the chat. So Brian C says, "Hey, it's Peepin' Tim. Mind if I come in?" I don't exactly know what he's referring to there, but come on in, Bri. Welcome. Lone Wolf DFS, I did get some batteries for the mouse. Not because I'm a good planner, not because I said to myself this morning, like, oh, first thing first, I got to go out and get some batteries for the mouse and for the keyboard here. I actually, on my third trip to the bodega today, remembered that I needed them. So it was after my keyboard died a few times while I was trying to punch up the article today. So it's kind of more out of necessity than actually good planning. But yes, new batteries in the keyboard and the mouse, so we should be all set there. Mama's in the chat. Mama says he's determined to get the win today, so maybe you should switch the logo to Roto. Hey, look, as long as it's Roto Scouts, not Roto Grinders, Roto Wire, Roto World, or any of those other Roto-based sites, then absolutely, buddy. Fire away. Podegen Stoner's in the chat. Love it. Jake Swales out there. Trey, Calvin, Stephen Leibowitz, Power. Think I got everybody. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to anybody who's not active in the chat, just likes to lurk, listen in, hear the advice, hear the good advice, the bad advice, whatever the case may be. Obviously, we didn't get there with Zach Evelyn yesterday, but we had a lot of good hits yesterday. So hopefully some of you guys turned that into a profitable day. I basically broke even. I was winning the FanDuel tournament for a little while, ended up basically breaking even. Not a bad day, but certainly not as good a day as it could have been, given how I feel like we kind of crushed that slate. I had a ton of White Sox and Cards stacks with those two teams together that were really looking good, but a lot of them had holes from Eloy Jimenez leaving the game. I feel like that injury probably cost me a better day, but hey, we take those ups, we take those downs, but that's the nature of the beast. But hopefully somebody out there took something down or had a nice finish. So let me know when those things happen. I love to see them, and it's not necessarily promoting the site or anything like that. It makes me feel good to see you guys win. So let's dive into this. We've got a big day today. I really like the looks of this slate. I think there are good pitching options, but kind of a lack of the premium name brands, or the few name brands that we have are kind of in difficult, challenging spots. We've got to embrace some bumpiness on this one, but we've got plenty to choose from. We've also got the big debut of Christian Encarnacion Strand for the Reds. That is another major prospect coming up and joining this Reds team that is just rapidly turning into an elite squad. But they're in an interesting spot. I feel like if they get popular today, it might not be the best spot in the world to get carried away with the Reds. So we'll talk about that as we get into it. But he's going to be an exciting player. 20 home runs, a ridiculous 300 plus, et cetera, triple slash in AAA this year. Just been outrageously good. We've also got the Pirates with 3 call-ups. Quinn Priester, their premium top-end pitching prospect, is making the start for them today. And then they called up their other catcher prospect, as well as their shortstop prospect, whose names are floating in my head somewhere, and their names are Leover Peguero and Andy Rodriguez. Rodriguez is the catcher, Peguero is the infielder. So 3 prospects joining the Pirates. Not nearly as exciting as Encarnacion Strand, but Priester is going to be an interesting one to watch. Elite curveball, pretty good changeup, but his fastball might not work at the major league level, so it's a lot of reporting is torn on whether or not he's going to be an actually really good, effective major leaguer. But a good prospect, one of their top pitching prospects, if we're not counting Paul Skeens, the kid they drafted out of LSU, who may end up debuting later this year. Joker's getting enthusiastic as I brought up Paul Skeens because he knows that we took him in the Dynasty draft, but let's dive into this one. Oh, Tyler O'Neill just added to the Cards lineup off the 60-day IL, so that's another boost for the Cardinals if he's in the lineup today. We'll get to that, but let's dive in. Let me pull up the old board here, and we will get started. Oh, you know what I didn't do? I didn't I didn't drop in the confirmed lineups. Let me do that while I talk through the beginning of the slate here. But we can touch on this first matchup, the Dodgers and the Orioles. We've got the return of Grayson Rodriguez to the show. He was pitching in the show early this season, pitched through basically into or through May, and then was sent back down. But up and down results, a premium pitching prospect, one of the top pitching prospects in baseball starting this season, if not the actual top pitching prospect in baseball. Had some growing pains early on, 26.5% strikeout rate was very good over his 45 and a third, his 10 starts. The 3.90 xFIP is fine, but the 7.35 ERA is obviously problematic. The 12.7% barrels, problematic, 52.2% hard hits, 6.16% home runs, none of that is good. He only cost 8,300, 7,700, but he's going up against the Dodgers. It's just kind of like if you were running this team, why bring this kid back to face the goddamn Dodgers? Like, wait till later in the week when I don't know who they're playing later in the week, but it's probably a better matchup than facing the Dodgers. They're just so good in terms of all the home runs they hit, all the sequencing, the run creation that they provide, and then all their stars or their three top stars and several other guys in the lineup just have super low strikeout rates. So it's just not a good spot for Grayson Rodriguez. I think he could find a handful of strikeouts, but he's just much more likely to get tattooed by this offense, or at best, like give up a handful of runs, pitch a few innings, and not have a great DFS start. So he's not really on the board for me. I'm more inclined to draw shares of the Dodgers. You can see they're pulling in some pretty good home run marks for these guys above the magic number for home run power. Those guys basically live in this general range, so it's not really drawing that much off of Rodriguez's 10 start sample here. These guys are all going to project into that range against a lot of pitchers in the league. But I think this does make a targetable situation with Rodriguez on the hill. You're paying a premium for most of the Dodgers bats, but they're affordable when you start combining in the David Peraltas, the Jason Haywards of the world, Chris Taylor in the lineup today, 3,000, 2,800 with multi-position eligibility for Taylor, 213, 284, 62 hitter this year, but 11 home runs, 7 steals, a 249 ISO in 186 plate appearances. There's definite value there. And then you do get James Outman still in the lineup, so they're not even sacrificing one of the three good lefties that we like to play. Peralta, Hayward, and Outman, all three of those guys in the lineup today. So really, we've got 4 workable parts in the 3s and 2s on DK, in the 2s on FanDuel to work into our Dodger stacks. You can take 1, even 2 of any of these 4 guys in combination with any of these 5 guys, and you're building a pretty effective stack. So I really, 1 through 9, I think you can play Dodgers in basically any combination that you can afford. Put them together with lower owned pitching if they're getting popular. I expect they'll draw a little bit of popularity, but I don't think they're going to be the most crushingly popular team on this slate. Maybe they are. Maybe I'm wrong. But I think the high prices on these guys tends to make them a little bit less popular in terms of stacking just because they're more difficult to get to. They're a non-optimizer stack on a lot of slates. But just look at all these double-digit home runs. They're approaching Braves caliber in terms of all the guys with significant home run totals in this lineup. Everybody creates runs really well. Everybody sequences pretty well, outside of maybe Max Muncy at 193, but he's still got a 329 on base. He draws 15.7% walks, so he even can keep the lineup rolling. So I love the power upside, like the potential a lot for the Dodgers. Orioles on the other side going up against Emmett Sheehan, another rookie starter, 20 and 2/3 innings, 4 starts, 19.5% strikeouts, pushing 10% walks, a 5.38 xFIP, 4.35 ERA. He's a kid that they believe in. He's not like a premium top 100 type of a prospect, but he's a kid that they expect to pitch for them for at least a handful of years. He projects out okay, 7,600, 8,300. I think just based on price in this matchup, you can play him. I just don't know that I want to. He's similarly priced and similarly projected to a lot of other players or a lot of other starters on this slate. And I think there's enough quality in that Orioles lineup that I don't necessarily need to tangle with them. I like getting to Orioles value stacks a little bit better than I like having to go to Emmett Sheehan shares. So I think that would be my tack on this one. Gunnar Henderson leading off, Adley Rutschman, Anthony Santander, O'Hearn, and Mountcastle both in the lineup. That's more flexible on the FanDuel slate where you're not deciding between O'Hearn and Mountcastle like you are at first base on DK. On FanDuel, you get O'Hearn in the outfield. You get eligibility on Anthony Santander at first base as well on the FanDuel slate. If you really wanted to shake things up, that can lead to some creative constructions. Santander, 4,500, 3,300 across sites. Pretty cheap for a guy with 17 homers, a 228 ISO, 133 WRC plus, who plays every day, hits from both sides of the plate. That's a cheap price on that bat. So really, 1 through 5, I really like for the Orioles here. Gunner's a really good player, 52.4% hard hits, 11.4% barrels, fits into third base or shortstop for, again, another guy, kind of a cheap price, 4,700, 3,000 for a guy who came up as a premium rookie, has delivered all season in kind of different ways and has now finally figured it out and is just mashing at the plate. 14 homers on the season, a 217 ISO, 122 WRC plus. Time to boost Gunner's price a little bit here. Rushman's a great catcher option. O'Hearn playing well above his head, but only 3,500, 2,800. The price hasn't gone up for the performance. 303, 352, 517 with 7 homers and 159 plate appearances. That might be the best 159 plate appearance stretch of Ryan O'Hearn's career, looking backward or forward in time. But we're not paying a premium because of it, so I think you can continue going to him in that spot. Mountcastle has power for days, and he's cheap. 4,400, 3,000. He's got 11 homers and 267 plate appearances. I talked about it a lot at the beginning of the season before he was hurt. Looking backward at last year, he had some advanced numbers. It was around his barrel rate. Not the hard hit rate, because that's 45.8% from last year, but the 15% barrels. Some of his other contact metrics and some of the advanced expected numbers had him rivaling only like Mike Trout, Acuna, like some of the best power hitters in the game for how he struck the ball. It didn't turn into results as well last season. It was looking like it was turning into results for him this season. Same 15% barrel rate this year, 44.4% hard hits, essentially the same hard hit output, and was hitting more homers this season. So it'll be fun to watch him through the second half. I really like Mountcastle as a hitter. I like him in stacks. Now that he's back in the lineup, I love that spot because he's kind of cheap, maybe a little bit sneaky. Hicks has been delivering for the Orioles. Colton Cowser is a premium rookie at 2,900 on both sites. Speed and power in the outfield for Cowser. Hasn't delivered in 28 plate appearances yet. Pretty confident that he will. I would be very surprised if that kid falls apart now that he's at the major league level. Urias and Frazier, totally playable parts, multi-position on both guys. Triple position on Urias on the FanDuel slate. A lot of value there. Both guys can hit for a little bit of power, deliver run creation. So I like the Orioles stack. I like really both stacks from top to bottom. I think both these teams are basically playable from 1 through 9. I think both pitchers are capable. I don't know that I would have very much of either one of these pitchers, though. At price, I think I would prefer the Sheehan play going up against the Orioles than the Rodriguez play going up against the Dodgers, even though Rodriguez is the higher-end pitcher with the better strikeout rate this year. Just a way worse matchup for him at higher prices. Or well, at a higher DK price, lower FanDuel price, I guess I should say, but even less appeal, I think, on the FanDuel slate. So it's really bats primarily on both sides in this one for me. See what is going on in the chat. Grayson's outing on July 4th. He went 6 innings and K'd 12 batters on 92 pitches, but against the Dodgers. Yeah, I actually missed that outing that he was back on the 4th. But yeah, it's just not a good spot against the Dodgers. Was that, let me see. Did I miss a start in here for him? That's not in his game log. Was that a minor league start? Is that what you're talking about, Shannon? Might have been a minor league start that you're referring to. Well, if that was in the minors, that explains why I missed it in my run through his game log. I thought it was in the minors. Okay, yeah, I thought this was his first start back since they recalled him since mid-May. So, yeah, I mean that's definitely upside. And he's just like he's that guy. I have no doubt in my mind that Grayson Rodriguez is that guy or will become that guy. Not to say that he's going to strike out 12 every time he pitches, but he has that ability. He is a high-end prospect. I just hate the spot. If he was going up against the Guardians, the Pirates, the Yankees even, I would have a lot more interest in Grayson Rodriguez in this spot. It's just the Dodgers matchup. Let's see what else is going on. Yep, Hunter Boone, yeah, Mountcastle is back. He played over the weekend. He came back on Friday or Saturday and then sat, I think, yesterday or sat maybe 2 of the games over the weekend. But, yeah, he's back. Let me grab the Guardians lineup. Pirates lineup not out yet. So I talked about Quinn Priester very, very briefly at the top of the show. Making his major league debut, 7,600, projects okay. 22.13 on the FanDuel scale. I think there's maybe a little bit more upside for him than that if he is the pitcher that I think he is. Like, I think I'm on the Quinn Priester yes side of the equation. I think he figures out his fastball. I think he works like 92, 95, somewhere in the mid-range. Excuse me. But given the dominant curveball that he's got a plus curveball, a good changeup. He's a 4-pitch pitcher. I think he figures it out. It might take a little time at the show, but I like the kid. I do believe in the prospect. So I think there's a little bit more upside there against the Guardians. Where it gets cut down somewhat is just in their ability to avoid the strikeouts. It's just not an ideal matchup for this kid to find some strikeouts in his major league debut. So 5-6 clean innings, okay innings, 2-3 runs, maybe something like that I could see. But I feel like maybe the Guardians limit the strikeout potential, which kind of sucks because he's at good prices here. I would probably be attacking that spot in a similar matchup for run creation, but with a team that strikes out a little bit more. Like if he was playing against not even like the Royals or the Twins or the Mariners, because those are the 3 highest strikeout teams against righties in baseball this year. But, a good like mid-level team, I would have more interest. I think it's playable at 7,000, 6,800, but it's probably not ideal. It's probably not the right spot for it. That said, good pitcher overall, 22% strikeout rate in AAA this season. So was pitching effectively in AAA, 22.4% strikeout rate, 9.3% walks was a bit higher than you would want, but he was better with walks through the lower levels of the minors. So I think that normalizes over time. Just in the promotion, lost a little bit in terms of the walk rate against more advanced hitting. We'll probably see a similar thing at the major league level. This doesn't really lead me to stacks of Guardians. I don't love grabbing this team. They're carrying a 4.78 run total. They're the favored side of this equation in Vegas. I don't know that I like it though, especially if they gain any ground as far as popularity goes. They're at cheap prices, so I expect maybe they will. It's just a team I haven't been going to at all this year, after being a team that I liked going to because of their ability to sequence, create runs with their speed, with their hit tools, and just be sneaky around a couple power hitters. They just haven't done that this year. The 2 power hitters have been only okay. Jose Ramirez has 14 homers, a 209 ISO, 127 WRC plus. Josh Naylor has 12 with a 187 ISO and a 126 WRC plus. Those guys lead the team by far. And then like the moderate power hitters, the guys expected to go like 15, 20, somewhere on there. Ahmed Rosario, Andres Jimenez, Josh Bell have just not been getting it done by any shape of the imagination. So it's just not a good heart of the lineup. If I'm playing them, I am going to grab, these are the guys I want. And then you bolt on some Stephen Kwan, maybe some Will Brennan. But it's not been great at all. So I can leave the Guardians to the public on a lot of slates if they're gaining any popularity. Their value pricing will bring them through the optimizer, fairly normally. But then they tend to get cut down by my process a lot when I'm sorting lineups, just because of these low home run marks, because of the low projections that they typically have. So I don't get to a lot of them naturally, and I don't really feel like I need to force any shares of Guardians in here. If you want them, it's Rosario, Ramirez, Naylor, Jimenez, and Josh Bell, with the focus probably on these 3 guys. Josh Bell maybe for value, given his power potential, but he hasn't really hit from much power. 9 home runs on the season, a 148 ISO, hit 17 last year, was in the high 20s the year before. That's the guy we want to come back. So maybe at price you grab some Josh Bell instead of Andres Jimenez alongside your Ramirez and Naylor stacks, but it's not great. Pirates on the other side. Pirates are going up against Xavier Curry, intergalactic ambassador Xavier Curry. XZ, not a frequent spelling you see at the beginning of somebody's name. Gotta love it. That is an awesome handle. 47 and a third innings, 16.4% strikeout rate out of the bullpen. That's where the good news stops for Xavier Curry. 3.04 ERA, 4.93 xFIP. He's going to be in the game for an inning, maybe 2 innings. He's a reliever. He's not a starter. He came up as a starter. But he's not going to be stretched out. He pitched over the weekend through, I think it was 20 pitches on Saturday, I want to say. So he's not going more than like 2 innings. And then this is going to be handed over to a traditional bullpen game. So I don't see any need to go to pitching on the Guardian side of things. If they named a bulk reliever, I still don't know that I would want him. Not that that's really leading to much focus on the Pirates' bats, but they've got some interesting names in here. I mentioned the debuts of Liver Peguero and Andy Rodriguez. I think they're interesting options here. Ji-Man Choi not making his debut, but he's not populating in the stats because I keep forgetting to change his name. I did change his name so that it projects and actually gives him a projection now, though. So that's a plus. 4.63 in the home run model to sit second on the team behind Jack Suwinski for Choi. 2,400, 2,300 if you find him in that cleanup role. I think Choi's playable alongside Suwinski, Reynolds, maybe some Carlos Santana for a cheap price, Henry Davis certainly, and then the two fairly high-end rookies here. It's not a bad version of this Pirates lineup now. 2,500 on FanDuel for the two rookies, dead minimum price for Peguero and Andy Rodriguez on the DK slate, assuming they're in the lineup. There's a little bit of upside, a little bit of potential there. Peguero had 13 home runs in across AA and AAA this season. Rodriguez has 6 home runs, 4 steals, a 268, 356, 415 triple slash with only a 14.9% strikeout rate and 11.4% walk rate as a rookie catcher. That was in AAA as a catcher. So that's good production from a catcher bat for the dead minimum. I think there's good opportunity to go there. Henry Davis has been very good so far since his promotion. So really, you're getting a trio of high-end kids who just haven't been in the league long enough to get to high salaries. But I like Davis. 94 plate appearances, 280, 372, 402 so far, 17% better than average creating runs, 2 homers, 3 stolen bases, doing exactly what they expected him to do. Jared Triolo, Nick Gonzalez, kind of take or leave, mix and match options at the bottom. So don't want to get carried away with Pirate stacks, but I think I can grab some. I think they're a reasonably good value play on this slate. Despite not necessarily projecting for a ton of power, like the model will need time to catch up to Peguero and Rodriguez if they hit at this level. Henry Davis not pulling a major home run total in this spot. Part of that is because of Xavier Curry's ability to so far limit home runs, although not really limiting hard hits or exit velocity. But again, he's only going to be in there for like an inning or two. So it's just a weird situation projection-wise. I like the Pirates a little bit better than I think the numbers are showing here. So for me, maybe a few darts with Quinn Priester for value. Some Pirates darts for value. Minor shares of Guardians bats if you want to make that value play, but I expect they'll be the more popular between these two teams, and I like the other side better, and no interest in Guardians pitching. Greg says you either need the X or the Z or not both. Steven says Zeri would work. I like that. Zeri McBride. Not bad. Anthony Falia says ND debut. Yep. ND I've heard of, says Trey. Yep. There's a Steven, is there weather around Pittsburgh? I didn't pull up the weather today. Let me I thought we were on a clean weather day. Let me take a quick peek. The NFL news alert. The Giants and Saquon Barkley have not reached an agreement on a contract extension per Ian Rappaport. Well, that's not good. Nothing like spending that draft capital on a running back and then not re-signing him when he turns out to be really good. Oh, well. Let's see. All right, so we do have some weather in play. Looks like Cincinnati is threatened by rain. This Pittsburgh game is threatened by rain. Multiple runs of storms going through the area. It's not raining the entire night. Could it be one of those by the time they pull the tarp and warm up? There's another storm 15 minutes away, says Mr. Roth over on Roto Grinders. So, yeah, one to watch for sure. Just these Midwest games, the Pittsburgh and Cincinnati games, a little bit in St. Louis. Those are like yellow on his scale. I hadn't really thought to check the weather today. I honestly thought it was a little bit better than this. Maybe that's just because it's kind of a nice day in the New York area. I shouldn't judge things that way. It's hot in New York today, but it's not rainy. It's not muggy, so it's a little bit better. Looks like Baltimore's got a little bit of concern, but less so. The other spots are basically clean. So it's the Midwest games are the ones you got to watch. Looks like a situation where we're going to just kind of be keeping an eye on it as we head into lock over the next couple of hours and see where we land. Hopefully you don't get the start, stop, cancel scenario. That's the worst case. Delayed starts are fine. Speaking of the Reds game, let's see what we got lineups wise. We got both of these, so let me grab them real quick here. The big debut that I referred to, Christian Encarnacion Strand, the real final piece of the major prospect puzzle for the Reds here, joining the lineup, hitting 7th today. Joker, go lay down. I know you're excited about Encarnacion Strand too, buddy, but keep it down. Another guy that we added to the Dynasty team in that trade, although he's just a one-year keeper for next year, but we'll get a little out of him this year, and then we'll have him for all the next season for $1, which is pretty nice, hopefully. Like I said, kid's got 20 home runs in AAA this season. Just a monster prospect. Encarnacion Strand was 20 home runs, a 306 ISO, a 153 WRC+, 331, 405, 637 triple slash, and 316 plate appearances in AAA. He's dynamite. Really, really like the spot for the kid. Oh, excuse this 1 second. As I mentioned in the article, Christian Bethancourt is no longer the only player whose name does not fit on the Fangraphs, or Fantasy Labs rather, lineups page. Encarnacion Strand joins him now with that super, super long last name. So you got to fix it. He checks in at the dead minimum on the DK slate, which is a major boon for DK gamers. Third baseman, you absolutely include him in your red stacks. You include him at 2,500 on the FanDuel slate. He leads the Reds in my home run model today, but only at 4.29 because they're facing Logan Webb, who is really good at limiting home run upside. So there's that. That's the limiting factor that I mentioned at the top of the show for going to red stacks today. I think they're going to be popular because they're fairly cheap. They're easy to get to. They're super fun with Ellie, with Matt McClain, now with Encarnacion Strand in the lineup. They've also got Joey Votto, Jonathan India, Jake Fraley. Ellie leading off today, by the way. Like that. Just a really good lineup, but not a great opportunity for them going up against Webb, who's got a 3.14 ERA, an even better 2.92 xFIP, 25.3% strikeouts, only 2.59% home runs this year because he limits launch angle very effectively. 2.7 degrees so far this year. Last year it was 1.40% home runs on 3.1 degrees, 5.5% barrels. The year before, 5.6% barrels, negative 0.5 degrees. So just another one of these guys, focused on ground balls, focused on cutting launch angle. He's allowed a few more barrels so far this season. These explain this. We don't really mind the hard hits, the exit velocity when most of the hits are on the ground, but a couple more barrels this year has led to a couple more home runs, but nothing problematic. Logan Webb has mostly been Logan Webb, and the strikeouts are back this year, which you really like to see. He dipped to low 20 strikeout total, 20.7 in 192 last year after working at 26.5 over 148 in 26 starts in 2021. So seeing him back at 25.3% strikeouts, still only 4.6% walks. All these things are very, very good to see for Logan Webb. So as much as I want to play the Reds, I might leave them for tomorrow. Not sure who they're going to face tomorrow, but it's probably not going to be Logan Webb. So maybe it's more of a Webb spot for me. 10-8, 10-5. It'll probably keep a lot of the popularity away. He projects not at the top of the board, but competitively for those prices. So especially if he's unpopular, I think I want to go to some shares of Logan Webb here. I hate the situation. I hate the bandbox. I don't like the lineup that he's got to face, but he's a talented enough pitcher that I believe in, and there are certainly strikeouts around some of those key Reds bats. So I think I'm playing the Webb side of it. I'll probably have some Reds, but it'll be tempered, especially if they get popular. If they're totally unowned for whatever reason, then maybe I go there a little bit more, but it still won't be aggressive, just given Webb's acumen for keeping the ball in the yard. If you do go there, Ellie leading off 6,300, 4,500, you just pay the premium. He's going to be a superstar. I'm absolutely convinced based on his skills. It's not just what he's done so far in the show, although that's been perfectly great and on expectations for superstar track performance, but just what he's done in the minors and just what the attributes are that he has on the field. Just make him a dynamite option. TJ Friedl, 16 stolen bases, a little bit of power in 289 plate appearances. McClain's been a dynamite rookie. He cost $54.39 with shortstop and second base eligibility. Jake Fraley, India, Votto, Encarnacion Strand. Lineup plays 1 through 7, and then on DK, Stevenson's a reasonably playable catcher, and on both sites, Will Benson has been contributing all year for 2,600, 2,800. If you're building an abundance of red stacks, you can absolutely use a handful of shares of Will Benson. 287, 392, 484 on the season, 133 WRC plus, 4 homers, 8 stolen bases, and 143 plate appearances. Still a very small sample. Not a kid who's going to be a star by any means, but a playable part for sure if he continues that kind of production. Giants bats on the other side. I like the spot for the Giants. They're very cheap. They're one of my favorite value stacks of the day. I expect they're going to draw some popularity. They were one of 2 teams projected over 5 runs today. The other one is the Detroit Tigers, hilariously. Giants going up against Brandon Williamson. Kind of a nothing starter here. 46 2/3, 10 starts, 19% strikeout rate, 9.5% walks, allowing 4% home runs on 11.3% barrels, a 5.21 ERA, a 5.07 xFIP. I see no real reason to go to Brandon Williamson, 6,000, 6,400. Godspeed if you want to roster him on the DK slate as your SP2. I don't see it. 18-point projection on FanDuel scoring just doesn't really put him on the board on either side for me. We've done the D Train. We've done Yankee Stadium. Today's show is brought to you by the Concept of History. The Concept of History. This is a T-shirt from the National Archives, same place that the Elvis mug that you guys have seen before came from. I just like the advertising the concept of history on my T-shirt. I don't know why. Just better than like, eat hot dogs at Bill's in Washington, D.C. I just feel like, National Archives, kind of cool. 76 pitches for Pivetta last time, so he's somewhat stretched out. Yeah, Steven, I actually really like the Pivetta spot. We'll get to that. That game was also against Oakland. He faced 20 hitters. He struck out 8 through a decent amount of pitches. Some other sites have him limited at 80 pitches. I think we can get him for 6 innings. I think we can get him to 90 pitches, 6 innings. I really like that spot for Pivetta. We'll get to it in a little bit. Reds also strike out a lot. Logan Webb can do that to you. Yep, I agree there. Oh, FC doesn't have Strand on yet? That's really annoying. Chuck, sometimes if you add the projection, if you go to the upload projections on FC, no guarantees is going to work. But if you just type in Christian Encarnacion Strand and give him a projection and hit upload, occasionally it might it can add him to the pool. That it used to work that way. I'm not sure if it still does. Steven, do I have a President Garfield has been shot shirt? No, but I would like one. Interesting. Tigers top ownership projection so far on FanDuel. That's not surprising. That's another spot where I'm like, I see it, I get it, I'll have some, but I kind of maybe will leave some of that to the field if they're that popular. We'll get there. Hunter, I don't think there's any relation to Edwin Encarnacion, not as far as I know, for Encarnacion Strand. Maybe a half brother, but it's not one that's that I'm aware of. Just like Ellie De La Cruz and Brian De La Cruz, I believe there's no relation there. Different teams. So yeah, Giants bats. I do think there's a good value opportunity here, particularly if the Tigers are outpacing them for value. There are some good righties that are focused on hitting for power against lefties, especially flawed lefties. I think Austin Slater's a really good option in the leadoff spot, 333, 411, 476 in a small sample so far this year. Has a little bit of pop, a little bit of speed, good nose for getting on base. Sets the table for Wilmer, J.D. Davis, Michael Conforto with all of their power upside. Conforto, lefty against this lefty. I'm not really sweating it. 13 home runs on the season. Get him into situations against righties out of the pen later in the game. Pat Bailey, Mike Yastrzemski, Luis Matos, Casey Schmidt, Brett Wisely. It's not the best bottom third with Matos, Schmidt, and Wisely down there, but those are playable parts. Matos, especially with hit tool and speed upside. I think there's at least good reason to go like 1 through 7 with the Giants. My prime focus will probably be 1 through 6 with some of the power bats there. My main targets would be probably Wilmer, Conforto, Davis, and Yaz. But it's a good value upside spot. You can see mid-range home run marks for some of these guys, flexible positioning, very cheap pricing. So it's not a stack that I'm saying is gonna win anybody the day by going off for a ridiculous total of fantasy points. But I think they can total enough fantasy points at price where they really make a difference. Hunter says McKinstry, Green, Torque, Karp, Vierling, Maton, Ibanez, Baду, Haas. That's a hell of a lineup. Yeah, they're going to draw some popularity with a total over 5 in that matchup. So yeah, this one more limited interest probably than many in the Reds bats given the matchup against Webb. Definite interest in Webb, particularly if he's under-owned. The less owned he is, the more I'll have. Williamson, no interest at all. Definite interest in Giants bats for value. Let's pick up the pace a little bit here. Marlins and Cards, probably got both of these lineups. We do. Marlins lineup looks like usual. Luis Arias, Jorge Soler, leading into the mid-range quality guys. So you've got the 2 excellent guys, then 3 okay guys, decent, okay to good guys, and then kind of a really crappy second half of the lineup for Miami. And then the St. Louis lineup is going to look about like expected. Dylan Carlson leading off for St. Louis. I had the projected had Jordan Walker in that spot, but Carlson makes sense there as well. So interesting pitching matchup. I think you can play both of these starters. Jesus Luzardo is one of the highest projected pitchers on my board. Actually, the highest projected, I believe. 10-2, 10-3 across sites. Totally worthwhile. 29.1% strikeout rate this year. 3.45 xFIP, a 3.29 ERA. Pitching very, very well. Has a little bit of an issue around barrels, but it hasn't really burnt him. Only 2.71% home runs. If we're seeking strikeouts, if we're seeking good, clean innings, depth, a high ceiling, I don't think we have to look too much further than Jesus Luzardo. You pay a premium for him against a team that I don't love targeting, even though they've been kind of up and down this season. They do have significant right-handed bats in this lineup, a number of good right-handed bats or growing right-handed bats. But the two stars, I kind of do fear these two hitters in the middle of the lineup. But that's not going to push me away from Luzardo when he's projecting this strongly on a slate like this. I definitely think you need him, but I might grab a few hedge stacks of Cardinals on the other side of it. I like the configuration with Goldschmidt, Arenado hitting back-to-back at the top of the lineup. Carlson's capable enough, 343 on base in 198 plate appearances, 5 homers, 3 stolen bases. Capable enough of setting the table for those two guys. And then it's an okay run of Wilson Contreras, for all as bad as he's been up and down this season, does have 11 home runs, a positive 114 WRC+, 12.3% barrels, 46% hard hits. Then you get Jordan Walker, Paul DeJong, who have both been good this season. Walker, 274, 335, 442 with a 116 WRC+, 8 homers in his 215 opportunities. That's a good rookie year. He broke camp with the team, got sent back down, he came back up, has been hitting. There's nothing wrong with Jordan Walker here. 3,100, 2,900. He's very, very cheap in the outfield. He lost his infield eligibility, but I would take shares of him there on this site. And honestly, that just means I don't have to decide between like him and Nolan Arenado, which I wouldn't want to do anyway. Paul DeJong has 12 home runs on the season. Not much else, but 12 home runs are very good for a shortstop for a cheap price. Ivan Herrera in the lineup, 2,800, 2,000 dead minimum on FanDuel as a catcher bat. Very, very good playable alternate catcher in this lineup. He's made 13 plate appearances in the show this year, but he was raking in AAA. I didn't actually realize that he was still up with the big club, so I guess they're carrying 3 catchers right now with Kneisner on the lineup as well. Is it Kneisner, by the way? Anybody know? I was thinking about that yesterday. I always said Kneisner for some reason, but then I was like, well, I don't say Knife, so why would it be Kneisner? It's probably Kneisner. Never heard his name said. I don't know that I've ever seen a game that he was actually playing in. Lars Nootbaar off the bottom, Jose Fetterman, playable parts. Nootbaar much, much more so. Not great against the lefty here, but if you're playing cards with the idea that they chase Luzardo, then you get upside from Nootbaar, and he's not incapable against lefties by any means. Decent counting stats, with 111 WRC plus on the year. Miles Michaelis, 7,500 to 8,200. Not a premium pitcher, kind of a soft tosser, but a guy who knows how to find clean innings. 16.3% strikeouts, but only 4.9% walks. A 4.12 ERA, a 4.62 xFIP. The xFIP being worse than the ERA is not what you like to see, but only a 7.3% barrel rate, only 2.03% home runs. Reasonably effective starter on the right day. Not a guy that you want to rely on every single time he's on the mound at whatever price in whatever matchup, but I think going up against the Marlins at these prices, I think there's enough room for Miles Michaelis at value as a reasonable enough starter here for DFS. So I'm going to have shares of Michaelis. I won't have more of him than I have of Luzardo, of some of the other high-end pitchers, but I think there's room for 10%, somewhere around there. Is workable enough starter that we've seen succeed at price over time. Obviously projects well in my model here. The Marlins are a non-threatening lineup. They rank... Oh, where is it? It's in the article. I thought I put it in here. I guess I didn't. Miami's lineup is top heavy in the 2 positions. Yeah, I guess I didn't put it in there, but we all know that Miami's lineup, as I said in there, is top heavy in these 2 positions with Arraez and Soler. They're obviously dynamite, 380, 431 for Arraez in the front end of his triple slash, creating runs 48% better than average. Soler's got 24 homers at 273 ISO. Those are the 2 top end guys. If you get through those 2 guys, you're probably okay. Getting into Garrett Cooper, Jesus Sanchez, Brian De La Cruz, those are the 3 good, not great players in the lineup, but all of them are making fairly sturdy contact. Not great barrels for De La Cruz, but a good hard hit rate. All of them have hit for decent power so far this year in relatively full plate samples of plate appearances. All of them are above average for run creation. It's just not great, and then it runs into Segura, Wendell, Fortes, and Dane Myers, which is pretty low end for the bottom end. So if you're stacking Marlins, it's really 1 through 5. I think the low end nature of the lineup kind of lends upside to the idea of Miles Michaelis shares here. Let me see if I can jump to it quickly here. Bear with me half a second. I want to look at the WRC plus for Miami against righties this season. 23rd by WRC plus against righties, just a 92 WRC plus collectively and a 131 ISO collectively. 20.5% strikeout rate is good, but when we roster Michaelis, we're not really hunting for strikeout upside. We're hunting for 7 clean innings and some bonuses. I think the Cards are good enough to put bonuses on the table for him. He's certainly got the upside to pitch to the quality start either way, but I think the Cards could, not definitely, not or likely to, but could give him the win bonus as well here against Luzardo. I'm much more enthusiastic about Luzardo than I am Michaelis, but I'll rank it Luzardo, Michaelis, Cards bats, and then way behind Marlins bats. There is a little bit of value in the Marlins. It's not like Michaelis is going to go out there and strike out 10, 15 of them, 16.3% strikeout rate, but like I referred to, doesn't really get himself in trouble, doesn't really allow too many long balls. So it's not a great spot for Miami bats. If you go there, it's those top 5 guys. That's really all I want from Miami. Moving on, Nationals up against a lefty in Drew Smyly, which is probably going to lead quite a few people to the Nationals. We've got both of these lineups as well. Let me grab them. That one goes there. This one goes here. Nico Horner back in the leadoff spot for the Cubbies. They finally have ended the Mike Tapman experiment, it looks like. All right, Nats with a wildly miscast C.J. Abrams in the leadoff spot again. 93 WRC plus 299 on base, but really struggles in same-handed matchups. I don't really know why they have C.J. Abrams in the leadoff spot. Should probably be Lane Thomas. Looking at the numbers against left-handed pitching, though, for the Nationals. Overall, they have a 107 WRC plus that ranks 14th in baseball, a 161 collective ISO, and just a 19.2% strikeout rate. That's where their quality comes. They're pretty good at getting bat on ball against lefties. There is some lurking power in the lineup, particularly against lefties, but there are also holes in the lineup against lefties. They've been good, not great. They've been okay, not standout. C.J. Abrams, to make the point, has a 141 ISO against lefties, a 68 WRC plus, a 277 on base percentage against lefties this season. That's who they put in the leadoff role. So that tells you the nature of this flawed lineup. Lane Thomas has been very, very good, both overall and against lefties this season. 189 WRC plus and 125 plate appearances against lefties, a 278 ISO. Half of his home runs have come against lefties. I like the spot for Lane Thomas. Heimer Candelario has been not good against lefties. 141 ISO, I think two of his home runs and an 87 WRC plus in 111 plate appearances for the switch hitter. He's just been better against righties this year. Meneses, pretty good hit tool. Hits for average, up to a 104 WRC plus now, but only a 143 ISO against lefties. Only strikes out 21.8% of the time. Puts him on the board against Drew Smyly here, but not like a major priority for me. Definitely on the board, gains ground against a lefty, as does Keibert Ruiz. He's sitting at 93 WRC plus with a 134 ISO in the split, but we do know there's lurking power for the catcher. Stone Garrett, a 225 ISO is quite nice against left-handed pitching, a 115 WRC plus in 102 plate appearances, but he does strike out 31.4% of the time against lefties. So there's that. Stone Garrett does have, where'd he go? 5 of his home runs against left-handed pitching this season. That's 5 of his 6 home runs against lefties. So he's obviously way better against left-handed pitching, but it's not like we're talking about like Shohei Ohtani then getting better from Shohei Ohtani. We're talking about Stone Garrett and getting a little bit better from Stone Garrett. So we don't want to get carried away with him. Dominic Smith, Luis Garcia, Alex Call, kind of a weak bottom end here. So again, it is Drew Smyly on the hill. He's got a 4.31 ERA, a 4.92 xFIP. He's given up a 3.70 home run rate, 6.9% barrels, 34.1% hard hits. Hard hits are not atrocious contact numbers. 19.5% round league average-ish, 1 in 5 type strikeout performer. Not a good pitcher by any means, 7,700, 8,000. He projects okay against the Nats here. I don't think I need any shares of Drew Smyly, but I'm not really over the moon about the Nationals in this spot. People seem to like to get to them for value. They've delivered against lefties in a lot of situations this year. I'll probably work in some, but I don't know that I want to get carried away with it. I still don't really believe in this team, even against lefties. Maybe it's me. Maybe it's bias. I feel like the numbers kind of justify it. I feel like we've seen a couple instances of just some happenstance that people are getting a little carried away with. So Nats aren't really for me. I wouldn't be shocked if they delivered. Don't get me wrong, but not really for me. I'm more inclined to go to the Cubs in this one. Mackenzie Gore looks fairly targetable given all the contact, all the premium contact, 11.3% barrels, 47.1% hard hits, and 90.6 miles an hour of exit velo, 3.61% home runs, putting way too many guys on base at a 10.1% walk rate, a 1.46 whip. Started out the season really strongly. Had a 35% strikeout rate through his first, let's say, 8 starts, and then has completely fallen off since then. The strikeouts have come way down. Still an okay, or good 27.8% strikeout rate with a good 12.7% swinging, but only a 27.3% CSW. There's a lot of reasons to think that we can attack Mackenzie Gore here. He's 7,900 on the DK slate. He's 9,200 on FanDuel. I think you can play a few shares of him. If he finds that strikeout form, certainly you've got a good pitcher on your hands. And I think he's better than the overall numbers have been this season. But I prefer the Cubs side of it. I think there's a little bit of lurking power there, particularly now that they've got Cody Bellinger and Patrick Wisdom back in the lineup. And I think there's a little bit of upside for run creation, for sequencing. Just a team that's good at those things. Nico Horner, 322 on base, needs to get on base a little bit more. 21 stolen bases is pretty good, though. If he gets on base more, the WRC plus goes up and everything goes along with it, as well as the rest of the team's run creation. Seiya Suzuki, not a great season from him. Only 7 home runs, 334 on base, 391 slug, 140 ISO, 99 WRC plus. I believe that he's a better hitter than this overall. 49.5% hard hit rate backs me up on that, but striking out a little bit too much, a little bit more than expected this year. For 3,200, 2,700, you get him at a good value price, though. Ian Happ has been similar in that he hasn't hit for the power I expect this year. 24.9% strikeout rate, but a very good 16.5% walks, 373 on base, 112 WRC plus. He's been creating runs. He's been really involved in the offense despite not hitting for power. He's only 3,500, 2,900. These guys are a cheap, another good source of value. Cody Bellinger has been great this season. 257 plate appearances, 12 homers, 11 steals, 135 WRC plus. Really nice return to form for Cody Bellinger. 301, 358, 524. Yeah, I mean, it's probably, he got cut down by an injury there, cost him 100 and change plate appearances, 150 or so plate appearances. It would be interesting to see where he'd be at for that. But it's not crazy to say that Cody Bellinger's basically back. We'll see what team he ends up on the rest of the way. He's going to be a big target for somebody at the trade deadline. 4,300 discounted price on DK, 3,800 full price on FanDuel. Outfield and first base eligibility, though, gives you nice flexibility. You've got 5 hitters in this Cubs lineup with multi-position eligibility on FanDuel. That's pretty valuable as well. One of them is Christopher Morel, triple position eligibility for 3,600 over there. Guy with 15 home runs and only 211 plate appearances. We know that he can mash at the plate on the right day. Trey Mancini, Patrick Wisdom hiding down toward the bottom of the lineup for 24-25 and 34-27. Multi-position on both of them on FanDuel. Tons of power upside. Wisdom's slashing 192, 281, 465 with a 99 WRC plus, but he's got 15 homers and a 273 ISO and 225 plate appearances. 19.3% barrels, 53.5% hard hits. It's a playable Cubs lineup up and down. You pick your spots. You don't want to get carried away with it, but I think I will have a decent amount of Cubs for their value pricing and for a pretty good matchup here against Mackenzie Gore. So for me, this one is really neither pitcher. Maybe a couple Mackenzie Gore darts, especially on DK for 79. There's enough upside there on DK. I don't know that I get to him at 92 on FanDuel. Definite interest in Cubs bats. Minor, moderate interest, platoon-based interest in the platoon-focused hitters from the Nationals. Those, again, are, for me, it would be Lane Thomas, Meneses, Keibert, and Stone Garrett. It's really 4 guys that I'm interested in. It's not great. I think I skipped the game. Come on, man. Click on the Rays. There we go. I'm sure we've got both of these lineups as well. 5 o'clock. We're making okay time here. Looks like we've got the Rangers lineup, but not the Rays lineup. So let me pop this guy in here. And we will get to talking about this game. I'll jump into the chat too, see what's going on over there in a sec. Steven says it's Knish. Chuck says it's Keisner. Power says it's K. Kisner. There's another N in there though. Is the second N or the first N is silent? I'm curious about this now. I'm gonna have to watch a Cards game when he plays and see how they say it. Not that I go by how the announcers say it, but when it's a non-Latin name, they tend to do a little bit better. So yeah, we'll try and figure that out. Dennis Forgy says that's a great knocking on Evan's door. Good one, Dan. Hunter Bones says I'm a Michigan guy. Watch the Tiger slander. Hey man, it's not my fault the teams run so poorly. I do like Kerry Carpenter in that lineup. I like the lefties. I talked about it in the article. We'll talk about it in just a second. But I do like the lefties plus Torkelson in that lineup. I just don't like them with popularity. Like it's why go to a low end team when they're going to be the uber chalk on the day. Interesting one here. Major potential playoff preview. Tampa lineup just dropped. Let me see if they got it up on Labs yet. They did. All right. Love when Labs gets them quickly. I don't know how they do things. I don't know whether they pull automated from a source somewhere that's not them, and then they feed the rest of the industry, or if there's just some guy waiting for lineups to drop on Twitter, and then he enters them really quickly. But occasionally there's long delays in there. It's a lot more effective when they get them out quickly. Mr. Christian Bethancourt in the lineup. There's a T on the end of his name. They're going to need to figure that out with Encarnacion Strand now because he's going to be a major hitter. Bethancourt, you can get away with not having his full name on there every single day, but Encarnacion Strand, they're going to need to extend that space on Fantasy Labs for names. So looking at the lineups, playoff preview here probably. Just a really good series. This should be a fun one to watch all week. Shane McClanahan opening the series for the Rays, going up against Dane Dunning. Obviously, two very different pitchers at two very different price points. I don't know that I need to go to Dane Dunning, even at 6,300, 8,500. On DK, there might be enough on the bone there that you could maybe get away with the value play, but it's not a great spot to tangle with. The Rays have just been outrageously productive all year. You're looking for Dunning to keep the ball in the yard, which is what he's good at. 1.62% home run rate this year on 7.1% barrels and 10.1 degrees launch angle. His launch angle was actually better the last two seasons, 5.4 last year, 6.8 the year before. Decent at keeping the ball in the yard, I'll say, those two seasons. So it's kind of weird that the home run rate has come down as the launch angle's gone up. But Dunning's an effective enough pitcher. What he doesn't do is strike anybody out. He gets in a little bit of trouble and gives up runs. 2.84 ERA is quite good, but the 4.58 xFIP is the more honest number. So I don't know that I need to go to Dane Dunning, even for value, against this Rays team. If it was a worse team, maybe you get a little upside out of him. I won't tell you not to do it because I don't think it's necessarily a mistake on the DK slate. I wouldn't do it on FanDuel. And it would be a very thin play on the DK slate. McClanahan, maybe is some value here, but it's tough. He projects okay. It is okay to well. He's one of the, I think he was like fourth on the board. But I don't love tangling with the Rangers with a pitcher that's this expensive. 11.6, 10,000. That gets tough. He's got an excellent 15.5% swinging strike rate, 31.4 CSW. Both of those put him among league leaders. It only amounts to 26% strikeouts, though. 96 innings in 17 starts, a little bit on the short start side. Had a couple games where he came out. 10% barrels, 40% hard hits. There's a little bit of premium contact in play there. 2.53 ERA, very, very good. 3.89 xFIP, though, is, kind of betrays that 2.53 ERA a little bit. I don't know that he's quite as good or quite good enough that he justifies 11.6. 10,000 is probably the right price on the FanDuel slate. 11.6 on DK is really high. Going up against this Rangers lineup, there's no discount for going up against the Rangers here. I'm more inclined to draw shares of Rangers bats, I think. It's not a spot where I want to get too aggressive with their bats, though. I have enough healthy respect for them. I have healthy respect for the 4.36 run total that Vegas is assigning to the Rangers today. But if it's a spot where nobody's going to them, which probably will be the case with people going to McClanahan or at least avoiding him, there's maybe some upside there. Marcus Semien, Corey Seager, Josh Young slides up to the 3 spot, going up against the lefty, which I like. Get his home run bat up there and maybe an additional plate appearance in the 3rd spot. Nathaniel Lowe dropping to 5th against the lefty. I still don't mind getting to him. 4,000, 3,400. Great price offset to that top of the lineup. Young is also cheap. 4,900, 3,600 for a guy with 19 homers on the season, a 124 WRC plus. He's been excellent this season. There's no reason he should be below 5,000. 36 on FanDuel is okay, but below 5,000 is still a discount for Josh Young on the DK board. Adolis Garcia has been ridiculous this year. 24 homers, 6 stolen bases, a 134 WRC plus, 258 ISO. Plenty of reasons to go to the top 5 here from the Rangers for sure, even against McClanahan. He hasn't given up a ton of home runs, but this looks targetable to me. 10% barrels, 40% hard hits. That's targetable enough with these guys who have been delivering in terms of hard hits, delivering in terms of barrels, delivering home runs this year. Look at all these advanced barrel rates, all these advanced hard hit rates. There's a lot of quality in this Rangers lineup today. Mitch Garver, Robbie Grossman, playable parts at worst. Garver's a good power hitting catcher. Grossman has a little bit of power, moderate, but playable enough for 2,400, 2,800 as a veteran in the outfield. And then you get into Ezekiel Duran and Leody Taveras, who've been outrageously good from the last 2 spots in the lineup all year long. Still triple position eligibility on Duran on the FanDuel slate for 3,000. Taveras is an outfielder on both sites for 34, 31. Good value pricing on the bottom end of the lineup here. These guys from Nate Lowe or Nathaniel Lowe down help you pay for these guys. It's a good enough stack to play against McClanahan. Not in an outrageous sense. Handful of shares, but they're definitely going to be in my pool. On the other side, same story. Jondy Diaz back in the lineup. Wander Franco, Luke Raley, Randy Arozarena, Brandon Lau, Jose Siri, Josh Lowe, Taylor Walls, Christian Bethancourt. They're basically playable from 1 through 9. Taylor Walls played above his head to start the season quite significantly. my phone activated when I said Jose's name. Taylor Walls, like I said, was playing above his head early in the season. 7 home runs, 20 stolen bases. Has really cooled off to a 206, 315, 361 triple slash, which is more along the lines of who he really is. But still multi-position eligibility on both sites. Cheap pricing. Bethancourt's a cheap catcher on both sites with a little bit of power. The quality's from 1 through 7 in this lineup right now, though. John D's been outrageous to start the lineup off, a 164 WRC plus on the season. Luke Raley's got a 160 in 252 plate appearances, 15 home runs, 10 steals for him, 11 home runs, 28 steals for Wander Franco. Arozarena sitting there with 16 and 10, 144 WRC plus for him. Brandon Lau with all his power, 11.6% barrels, 45% home runs, 9 homers on the season, 45% hard hits rather, 9 homers on the season, a 103 WRC plus for Brandon Lau. Just an outrageous guy to add back into this lineup now. 226 plate appearances for him on the season, hit 39 home runs as a second baseman 2 years ago. Excellent power bat. Jose Siri has been outrageous this season with 18 home runs and 217 plate appearances, 7 stolen bases, 115 WRC plus. Probably not going to continue that torrid pace throughout the entire season, but putting bat on ball really well. Still very cheap on the DK slate anyway, 3,400. So 1 through 7 enthusiastically, and I think they play 1 through 9. For me, this one is raise bats like well above the other options. Rangers bats and McClanahan kind of tied, given McClanahan's high pricing. And then really no real interest in Dane Dunning, but I get it for value at 63 on the DK slate. I get it, but I wouldn't recommend it. Lineups. We've got both of these. So remember, there's some weather potentially in this Kansas City game, also in the St. Louis game, also in the Pittsburgh game. As we drop this Tigers lineup in here, this crazy popular, highly projected Tigers lineup, going up against Jordan Lyles. Every reason in the world to believe that the Tigers will succeed today against Jordan Lyles, outside of it being baseball and them being the Detroit Tigers. Lyles on the season, 16.7% strikeouts, a 5.37 xFIP, a 6.42 ERA, giving up 4.84% home runs on just 33.5% hard hits, but a massive launch angle, ridiculous barrel rate. So he doesn't give up a ton of hard hits that aren't home runs, but he gives up a lot of home runs that are hard hits, if that makes sense. No need to go to Jordan Lyles here unless you're really an extreme dart thrower. Even against the Tigers, I don't really see the upside in this spot. 96 and 2/3 in 17 starts. Doesn't typically pitch deep because he's typically getting lit up for runs. Not a great pitching spot. Not a great pitching spot on the other side with Matt Manning. Matt Manning last time out was part of a combined no-hitter. That'll be like the best thing he does all year, perhaps for the next few years. 6,800, 8,500. There is strikeout upside from the Royals. They're the worst team in baseball against righties for strikeouts, but Matt Manning hasn't been good at getting the strikeouts so far this year. 16.9% in 29 innings, 5 starts. Last year, 18.3% strikeouts in 63 innings, 12 starts. Year before, 14.8% strikeouts, 85 and a third, 18 starts. Not a very high-end pitcher, not a very reliable pitcher. I'm not going to shares of Matt Manning, even against the Royals. I think it leads me more to some Royals potential upside. We saw them get to whoever it was yesterday. Guy that we liked. Forget it. Regardless, was it Eflin? I think it was the Eflin spot. We saw the Royals deliver a little bit yesterday. That's kind of what they can do at the plate. You got Bobby Witt. You don't have Sal Perez. He came out of the game yesterday with a injury. MJ Melendez probably going to be doing the catching going forward for the Royals for a little bit. Putting him third, 2,700 on both sites. There's a little bit of value there, but you don't get him as a catcher on the DK slate. Oh, Freddie Fermin going to do the catching probably, actually. Freddie in the lineup as a cleanup hitter. Catcher on both sides, 2,900, 2,400, 257, 304, 429 on the season. Not a lot to love about that spot. Nick Prado hitting 5th. Drew Waters, Mike Massey, Nicky Lopez, Samad Taylor. This is a really low-end Royals lineup. I might take back what I said about maybe getting some shares of Royals value. I think they could deliver, but it's really thin. There's a lot of strikeouts. Anybody that has quality in that lineup outside of Bobby Witt strikes out way too much. I don't really like the spot. That's not going to lead to Manning shares because I don't know that he finds the strikeouts. You can see that he actually does project okay in the model there, though. So I don't want to recommend it to anybody. I don't want to say go out there and play shares of Matt Manning. Even at 68 on DK, if you wanted to, I guess. Ugh, God. I don't want to do that to you. I'm not going to tell you to go play Matt Manning. You can see the projection there for yourself. If you want to play that, go ahead. But it's really thin. I don't buy that one. I'm more on the Royals side, but not with much enthusiasm without actually using them outside of anything for value. And then let's talk Tigers. Triple position eligibility on 2 guys in the lineup. Those are Matt McKinstry and Andy Ibanez on the FanDuel slate. Dual position eligibility on 4 guys on the DK slate. That's compelling. I do like the mix and match quality. There's tons of low prices. There's also a lot of really low underperforming or guys who are just bad and performing to expectations in this lineup. Only Kerry Carpenter, Matt Vierling, and Riley Green above average for WRC plus for run creation. I do think Kerry Carpenter's a good lefty bat. A lot of power there. 11 home runs and 178 plate appearances this year. That's very good. 262 ISO, a 136 WRC plus. Torkelson as a righty has 12 home runs on the season, a 168 ISO with a 12.2% barrel rate, 48.8% hard hits. I've talked about Torkelson a few times. I kind of believe that he's coming around at the plate. I kind of believe in the future here. I think he's totally playable against Jordan Lyles. So you put Torkelson together with Carpenter, with Riley Green, who is their best overall hitter right now. 299, 367, 448, a 130 WRC plus, 6 homers, 6 stolen bases. Missed a lot of time, but I think Green is their best hitter, justifiably their most expensive piece at 4,700, 3,000. Very, very cheap when that guy's your most expensive hitter. McKinstry off the top, good stolen bases, 12 in 294 plate appearances, 6 home runs on the season, but really a 322 on base, a 123 ISO, 95 WRC plus. Miscast as a leadoff hitter. Not a guy you really want setting the table for the actual quality in the lineup. So there's quality from 2 through 4. Vierling, obviously, arguably some quality there. 272, 337, 407, a 110 WRC plus, 7 home runs. Has gotten most of that in same-handed matchups, if I remember correctly, this season, from when I've looked at them against lefties. So maybe there's a little bit of upside for Vierling, 44% hard hits, 3,300, 2,800. But if he's popular, I don't know. I don't want to get carried away from Matt Vierling. Nick Maton, lefty, multi-position, 2,700, 2,300. Slashing 163, 289, 298, 69 WRC plus. Yikes. Not great. Let's take a quick look at some of these splits. First righties. Back to Detroit here. So I put it in the article. Overall, Detroit against right-handed pitching this season. An 87 collective WRC plus. A 138 ISO. 24.3% strikeout rate. Yeah, it's Jordan Lyles. There's plenty of upside in the fact that it's Jordan Lyles, but let's not suddenly call this team good. Against righties, Green is very good. Carpenter's very good, as you would expect. 143 WRC plus, 134 WRC plus in 190 and 159 plate appearances so far this year. 172 ISO for Green, 272 ISO for Carpenter. Both those guys are very good in this split. I like the spot for both of those guys. In a total vacuum, I would have a lot of those guys. But if they're going to be the two most popular players on the slate, I don't know that I need it without a lot of support in this lineup. Vierling, like I said, is 121 WRC plus in same-handed matchups this year, 21.5% strikeouts, a 158 ISO. Everybody else in the lineup is below his ISO, so below a 158 ISO. Everybody else in the lineup has been below average for run creation against righties this year. Everybody else in the lineup has an on-base percentage of 331, which is Akil Baddoo's number, or below, with the vast majority of these hitters in the 200s. This is not a good baseball team. This is not a great spot. If the public is getting wildly carried away with it, I think they can have it. Have some, but undercut. Have Torkelson, Carpenter, Riley Green. Have those guys. Have some Matt Vierling. For sure, include a little bit. But if the field's at like 15, 20% on any of those guys, I can be at 5 to 10% and be perfectly happy with it, especially when we've got other good spots for value on the board. Just not the spot for me, anyway. Not with the public there. As I said, in an ownership vacuum, I would be excited about this opportunity. Or even excited is kind of the wrong word. I would be interested in this opportunity around some of those hitters. With the public there, don't need it. So this one is neither pitcher, but if you wanted to go to a pitcher, if somebody said gun to your head, got to play one of these guys. It's definitely Matt Manning. It's probably Matt Manning on the DK slate for the price. 85 is just, whew, that's a high price to pay for Matt Manning in any matchup. He could be facing me, and I don't know if I'd want him for 85. 3 games to go. Yanks, Angels, Griff Canning on the mound, Luis Severino on the mound for the Yankees. Boy, has it been ugly for Luis Severino. Neither lineup in this one. See what's going on over in the chat. Chuck Deuces says their home K rate is 21% and road rate is 27.4%. And it was that way last season. I never forget target KC Royals at home versus righties. Okay. That's interesting. I don't get too deep into home road splits, Chuck, but that's at least an interesting offset if you're talking about the Royals there. Interesting enough. 8 Game says, thanks for creating DFS content for people who enjoy baseball. You're welcome, buddy. I appreciate it. Love people who enjoy baseball as much as I do. I love creating DFS content. With that in mind, everybody hit the little thumbs up down there and give me a little love. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so that you know when we go live with these variable shows that we schedule. Todd Strunk says Yankees projected lineup is really bad. Over under on Ohtani bases. Ohtani bases. I hadn't really thought about that, but certainly there's a pretty respectable over under I would expect. 34 home runs on the season, 11 steals for Ohtani, slashing 301, 386, 665. 2.5, 3.5. What's the what's the actual line at? I'm curious. It's gonna be a lot of total bases for Ohtani, that's for sure. Zach Neto in the leadoff spot in the projected. Mickey Moniak hitting third. Taylor Ward, Mike Moustakas, Matt Dace, Hunter Renfroe. I wouldn't be surprised to see Hunter Renfroe climb the lineup by a few spots here from what's projected. Guy with 75 home runs over the past 2.5 seasons deserves to hit higher than 7th here. 250, 299, 451. Not great for on base, but definitely out of the guys that are in this projected lineup. Like, I'd rather have him hitting cleanup than Taylor Ward. I think those two guys very likely to flip in this lineup. Hit Ward 7th, hit Renfroe 4th, and I like this lineup a lot better. But I think they're very playable here going up against Severino. He's just been struggling badly. 9 starts, 42 2/3, 17.8% strikeouts, 5.21 xFIP, 7.38 ERA. It has not been good for Sevy. 5.29% home runs, 48% hard hits, 11.3% barrels, just leaving things flat over the middle of the zone. Just not pitching effectively at all. Projected at the bottom of the board for me. I don't think I'm going to any shares of Sevy. If you wanted to argue like seasons past performance, strikeout ceiling, potentially, I can make the case, but I don't know that I want to, just given the current form. I don't see a return to form in the cards right now. Even if he is, let's say he goes out, has a decent game, gets through 5, has struck out 5 or 6 of these hitters. He's probably also walked a few. He's probably been in trouble a few times and gotten out of it. And just the way that Boone has that quick hook, especially if he's giving you 5 effective innings, they're going to say, and I don't love to chase narratives, but I know my Yankees, they're going to say, get him out of there now, give him that game of 5 clean innings, and let's hopefully get him back on track. That's just how this team works. Plus 280 for a home run for Ohtani. I don't dislike that spot. 1606 has him as the in the home run model. I think he was second overall on the home run board. No, first overall on the home run board, excuse me. Number 1 with a bullet on the home run in the home run model for me. So I do like that plus 280 if you're making home run wagers today. Not a bad spot whatsoever. I think you can stack Angels. I think you can include Neto and his excellent hit tool. It's not really on display yet, but he's got a very strong hit tool. Pretty good nose for getting on base. Great spot in the lineup, obviously if he's hitting leadoff ahead of Ohtani. Excuse me. Did you guys hear that? Mickey Moniak, outrageously good so far. 10 home runs, 326, 358, 632 in 151 plate appearances on the left side. Nice little piece to add to this lineup in the absence of Mike Trout. A little bit of power upside. Obviously not Mike Trout, but a little bit of power potential there. Ward has 10 home runs on the season. He is a roller coaster of a player, just up and down like crazy. Like I said, I'd rather have Renfroe in that spot. I'd probably rather roster Renfroe. First base and outfield eligible on DK, 4,000, 2,900 in the outfield on FanDuel. Major source of power on the right day. Mike Moustakas at 25 on both sites, first base and third base on FanDuel. He's given us a little bit this year, surprisingly. I thought Moose was basically washed, hadn't been the same player over the last 2 seasons, but he's got 8 homers on the season, a 188 ISO and 190 plate appearances, 261, 342, 448. Going up against a washed version of Sevy, maybe you get a little bit of value out of Moose there. Matt Thace from the left side is a catcher, a little bit of pop. Eduardo Escobar is a switch hitter. Luis Renifo is a switch hitter. Both of those guys can hit a home run, have delivered very infrequently this year, but there's a little bit of value in both of those guys too. So I like the spot for the Angels. I definitely like the spot for the Yankees going back the other way against Griff Canning. Not to bury the lead too much on that one, but there's a lot of home run potential for the Yankees today. Griff Canning, 4.84% home run rate so far this year, 46.5% hard hits, 9.4% barrels, a 4.62 ERA. Does have a 22.9% strikeout rate, a 411 xFIP. Wouldn't totally shock me to see Griff Canning have a decent start here. He's got the ability, if he doesn't give up home runs, he's got the ability to pitch through this lineup. It wasn't good 2 years ago, 62 2/3, but a little bit better on the, oh no, excuse me, that strikeout rate is normalized back. I thought it was still a little bit lower. Similar numbers in terms of runs allowed, power allowed. So a targetable pitcher, I think, with bats, but a guy who, if he went out there, struck out 6 of these Yankees, didn't allow any runs over 5 innings, I wouldn't be completely shocked. They're just bad. It's a bad Yankees lineup. It's a poorly constructed Yankees lineup that is also underperforming and on top of being poorly constructed. So don't love it, but I do think there's home run upside here. Gleyber Torres was my home run pick for the day. 13 homers on the season for Gleyber, 10.92 in the home run model. Giancarlo Stanton, second overall on the day in the home run model, 14.83. 11 on the season, looking like he's starting to surge like Giancarlo Stanton tends to do. So I want to be a part of it. 252 ISO, got himself up to the waterline with a 100 WRC plus and 177 plate appearances. Hopefully the next 100 are better than that first 177 were. Hopefully he stays healthy. Anthony Rizzo, very cheap for his skills. 4,200, 2,900 at first base. I know he's hitting 254, 344, 396, but I also know that he's better than that. 11 home runs on the season. He's hit 30 plus home runs in so many seasons in his career that I've forgotten what the number is. Just a capable veteran bat from the left side that I want to get to if others are not. DJ LeMahieu having a really bad year, but still offers triple position eligibility on FanDuel, dual on DK. We know there's a better hit tool there when he's going right. He's just not been going right for going on multiple seasons at this point. Bader and McKinney, both drawing pretty good little home run marks here. 8.88 for Bader for the people who like numerology. 7 home runs on the season so far. 92 WRC plus, but a decent player from like mid-range power, mid-range speed. 3,700, 3,200 doesn't break the bank. McKinney is very cheap. for a guy with a 13.6% barrel rate, a 40.7% hard hit in just 84 plate appearances. If we're being honest, he is not a very good player, but he does have 4 home runs, a 215 ISO, a decent contact profile in that small sample. He's a guy who came up as a fairly highly regarded prospect and then never really connected. Quad A type player, not even delivering that like Mike Ford style, way too many home runs for being Mike Ford quad A type performance this year, but he's been okay for them. Volpe, good counting stats, not great at anything else. Osvaldo Cabrera, not all that playable. 2,100 to 2,000 is fine, but he doesn't do very much. He's a slap hitter. He's a multi-position guy in real life who they can deploy in the infield, the outfield, move around the board as needed, but not great. Same story with IKF if he lands in the lineup. Kyle Higashioka, I definitely like his power. 5 home runs on the season is limited output in 155 plate appearances, but 12.4% barrels, 49.5% hard hits, in line with what he did in terms of contact profile last year. I think there's sneaky power in Kyle Higashioka. Rays lineup is out. Siri back. Yeah, we had the Rays lineup when we talked about it, didn't we? I thought we did. Yeah. Siri back hitting 6th. Love that spot. 18 home runs and 217 plate appearances, 7 stolen bases. And Siri's been a guy that we've talked about the last few seasons as like when he's in the lineup, at the bottom of the lineup, he's super sneaky. He has home run upside. He has stolen base, and he would deliver like, 6, 7 home runs and a stolen base here and there. Just been outrageous for the Rays, like everybody else on that team has this season. So we talked about this one. For me, really, this one is neither pitcher. Both stacks. Pretty enthusiastic about the spot for both stacks. I think you can get away with the Yankees. I think you can get away with Angels. I wouldn't be completely shocked to see either pitcher deliver a good 5-inning performance here. But just looking at the board, Yanks rank 5th overall by projections. Angels rank 8th, and they sit 1st and 4th by home run upside. And both teams showing major points for value as well. So points per dollar, home run potential, scoring potential just for fantasy points, going up against flawed to lousy pitchers. It's a great spot for both of these teams. So I'm enthusiastic about stacks on both sides. Probably won't roster either pitcher. 2 games to go. We've got both of these lineups. Probably the best pitching matchup of the day with Sonny Gray going up against Logan Gilbert here. I kind of want to have a lot of shares of both of these starters. I expect that at the very least, Gilbert's got to be popular. It would be crazy to me if Gilbert wasn't popular in this spot, given a 28.7% collective strikeout rate for that Twins lineup. That is aggressively high. That is targetable. But the Mariners against right-handed pitching are right there with the Twins. Like I've said a couple times on the show already, it's the Mariners, the Twins, the Royals, and the Athletics at the top of the board for strikeouts against righties, and we can target all 4 of those teams today if we wanted to. 3 of them are at least very targetable. So I think we can go to both of these pitchers. 96 on both sites for Sonny Gray. Perfectly playable, 24.1% strikeout rate, a 2.89 ERA this season, a 3.77 xFIP. 9.3% walks isn't great. 42.1% hard hits isn't great, but he's only allowed 3 home runs all season. A lot of his numbers are kind of helped by the fact that he's only allowed 3 home runs all season. It's not a sustained trait for Sonny Gray. He's maybe gotten a little bit lucky to be at that level, but I think against this heavy strikeout lineup, he's definitely got upside for strikeout potential. 1-4 right now with the potential to go higher than that today. Definitely gets us some Sonny Gray. If you're enthusiastic about the Mariners or you want to attack the idea that he's going to give up more home runs in the second half, you can certainly grab a few of their power bats. Julio Rodriguez, Jared Kelenic, Eugenio Suarez, Cal Raleigh, Teoscar Hernandez, Mike Ford even, who I mentioned before. There's a lot of power in this Seattle lineup. This group of players has a combined 62 home runs, but that's across a combined 1,835 plate appearances. Mike Ford on his own has 9 and only 98 plate appearances. That's probably a higher ratio. 154 WRC plus. Ford is not this player. Not by any stretch of the imagination, but when you get him at 25, like I was saying for whoever that was at the top of the show, when they haven't raised, I think it was O'Hearn, when they haven't raised his prices for the outrageous streak of 98 plate appearances, then you can still keep going to that spot and just, continue to ride the bat until it bucks you. And I think that's perfectly viable with shares of Mike Ford here. The quality is obviously from 1 through 7 in this lineup. Ty France, capable correlated scoring piece. JP Crawford, same story from the top of the lineup. And then all the power, but all the filthy strikeouts through the heart of the lineup. On the Twins side of things, They're facing Logan Gilbert. I really like the spot for Logan Gilbert. He projects number 2 on the board at 35.9 in the FanDuel scoring, 9,800, 9,900 though. When we're thinking about like McClanahan in the 11s on DK, if you can get Logan Gilbert in this matchup for 98, just do it. 24.8% strikeouts, 4.4% walks, a 3.66 ERA, a nearly identical 3.69 xFIP, 0.98 WHIP, 12% swinging strikes. Very, very good pitcher. 9.3% barrels is a little bit high. 38.5% hard hits, not that bad. 89 miles an hour of exit velo, pushing a little bit higher than we'd like, but only 3.04% home runs. This is also a little bit higher than I'd like from my aces that I get really excited about type of a pitcher, but it offsets it by the 4.4% walks, the aggressive swinging strike rate. So I really like the spot for Gilbert. Going up against a Twins lineup that opens with Correa, Edward Julian, Byron Buxton, Alex Kirilloff. All those guys could hit a home run today, but come on. We're talking about guys with 22.8%, 32.5%, 30.9%, 24.5% strikeout rates that just support the upside for Logan Gilbert here. Guys who have struggled. Carlos Correa has hit for a little bit of power, but not done much else at the plate this season. 11 homers, a 176 ISO. Even those are not characteristic of Carlos Correa's output. Edward Julian, interesting season in that he's got 7 home runs, 285, 359, 518, a 234 ISO and only 157 plate appearances, but 32.5% strikeouts is targetable. 15.7% barrels, 44.9% hard hits. Very good young prospect that they're at least, moderately excited about. 3,100, 2,800, a playable part when you're going to Twins lineups, but definitely a target for Gilbert strikeout upside. Buxton, same story. He's a superstar when he's going right, but he always strikes out a lot. 15 home runs on the season, only slashing 199, 289, 417. So Buxton in a bad season with all the strikeouts, kind of targetable for me. Kirilloff, Solano, kind of non-threatening guys in the middle of the lineup. Kirilloff's got the idea of power, but hasn't really delivered it. Solano, more of a hit tool-oriented player. Both of them are above average for WRC Plus in 208 and 263 plate appearances, but not premium players, not anything to fear in the lineup, certainly, and plenty of strikeouts available in both of those guys. You get to Max Kepler in a 23% strikeout rate. He's got 12 home runs, but only slashing 209, 280, 400, 88 WRC Plus. So just a lot of inconsistent power hitters through the top 6. Then you get Ryan Jeffers, 28.4% strikeouts, decent power as a catcher, but hasn't really delivered a lot in 162 plate appearances this year. His strikeout rate looks great next to Joey Gallo's 40.6. I like Gallo better because he walks. He's hit more consistently for home runs. He's got a positive WRC plus and a 286 ISO, but 40.6% strikeouts is super targetable. Michael A at the bottom of the lineup strikes out 34% of the time. His 11 homers and 11 stolen bases were totally unowned outside of like me and people who watch this show, but it's difficult to recommend him. 2,100, 2,600. You get to him if you're building a lot of stacks of Twins, but he's not somebody to prioritize and go out of your way for and say, oh, I got to build 10 stacks of Twins so that I can play Michael A. Taylor. It's more, I've built 10 stacks of Twins because they're in a good spot, so Michael A. Taylor is in 3 or 4 of them. Not a good option from the bottom of the lineup. So for me, this one is firmly enthusiastic about both sides for pitching. Logan Gilbert, definitely above Sonny Gray. And then bats-wise, Mariners above Twins, but neither one of them as a priority. I could see some home run potential on either side, but it's not a great spot for stacking. Low priority stacks. Last game of the slate, 5:39, plenty of time. Traditional 7:05 start time today, for those wondering. Let's grab the A's lineup. Weird configured. I think the A's accidentally gave the umpire their lineup card upside down. Really interesting. It's very much just like reversed from what was projected here. Let's drop it in. Let's take a look. So Zach Geloff in the leadoff spot. Jordan Diaz, Ryan Noda, Brent Rooker, Soderstrom, Langoliers, and then Bleday and Seth Brown in the 7th and 9th spots in the lineup. It's a strange configuration. Their best hitter is hitting 9th. That's an interesting decision by the Oakland Athletics. A team just loaded with interesting decisions. I do like Geloff in the leadoff spot, 2,700 on both sites, third baseman on FanDuel, second baseman on DK. He leads the team with now an 11.37. That's gone up since he picked up like a half a plate appearance, moving up to the top of the lineup. Has not delivered any home runs at the major league level in his 12 plate appearances so far, but 333, 667. Good little start to his career, 2 stolen bases. I think that's an interesting enough hitter in that spot. Jordan Diaz, 2,300 on both sites. Second baseman on both sites. 240, 267, 430 with a 190 ISO, 6 home runs in just 105 plate appearances. Interesting enough, I guess, if you're going to A's. Ryan Noda gets on base quite a bit, but also strikes out a lot. Brent Rooker is totally flawed at the plate, strikes out way too much. 16 home runs. He had those in May. 233 ISO, 130 WRC+. Plus, he was an all-star. He's got that going for him. Soderstrom, premium rookie catcher that they just called up. He's also only made 12 plate appearances, but a kid that they expect to hit. They like him a lot. He was a high-end prospect for them. So I like Soderstrom in the 5th spot. Dual catcher configuration on both sides with Shea Langoliers also there. He's got 10 home runs and 301 plate appearances, but not a good hitter overall at 207, 270, 375, 80 WRC+. Plus. Bleday, Allen, and Seth Brown. Like I said, Seth Brown is the best hitter in this lineup. He had 25 home runs, 11 stolen bases last year. Only 198, 276, 389 this year, 88 WRC+, plus, but does have 9 home runs and 185 plate appearances, missed a ton of time. Nick Allen is a low-end slap hitter of an infielder. It's a weird lineup. Not to get too far afield, but we talked about it before. Nick Pivetta at 7,300, 7,000, I think is the much better side of that coin. As much as I don't want to roster athletics, I think I do want to get to some shares of Nick Pivetta here. There are some questions about the potential pitch count, but like we said, he went 5 in a bulk relief appearance just before the break, struck out 8 of these same athletics, gave up a home run, allowed 2 earned runs, but it was an okay start. And what I liked was that he faced 20 hitters, struck out 8 of them, gave you a good performance with 70 some odd pitches. I think he cracks the 80-85 threshold, gives you upside potential to like 90. And against this lineup, if he has that kind of a day again, might not need 90 plus pitches to give you at least 5 and a win bonus, potentially 6 and a quality start bonus where you need it. The price is right to take those shots. Even if he doesn't deliver, you are not making a mistake by taking those shots on Nick Pivetta at these prices. 8 starts, 69 innings, some bulk relief appearances, 27.1% strikeout rate. One of the better strikeout rates available against one of the worst teams in baseball, one of the highest strikeout total teams against right-handed pitching. They were on that list too. 10.4% walks is aggressively high, 4.83 ERA, but a much better 4.32 xFIP. He's allowed too much premium contact, 13.1% barrels, 45.9% hard hits, 91.9 miles an hour of exit velo. That explains the 4.01% home runs. But it's not like we're scared of the Oakland A's power here. Most of the power hitters in this lineup hit from the right side anyway. They buried their good lefty power hitter in the 9th spot in the lineup. I see upside here for Nick Pivetta. At price, he projects well. It's just the right kind of a spot, right kind of a situation. I don't care about these warts with him at this price. I care about this. I care about this. These are good. There's plenty of potential here. If he sees 85 pitches, we're probably in business with Nick Pivetta today. Red Sox stack on the other side to round things out. Lineup just dropped. Verdugo in the 2nd spot. Yoshida hitting cleanup. Ooh, no Rafi Devers today for the Red Sox. Downgrade for the Red Sox stack. I don't know what that does to my opinion of Mr. Blackburn here. Probably like him a little bit better than I did, but he was a thin play anyway. Good, not great pitcher. Not good is even maybe a stretch. Okay, serviceable. Days above league average, days below league average. A guy who has delivered. Famously at Stochastic, there was a who is the Paul Blackburn of the day question every day because Paul Blackburn delivered like one really good start once upon a time. He is a guy who can deliver in rare instances. He's got a good strikeout rate, 24.1%, over 37 innings, 7 starts. 4.86 ERA, not good. 4.19 xFIP is pretty good. 32.7% hard hits, 6.2% barrels. That has appeal. That limits power potential. 2.35% home runs. Was similar in terms of power expectations last year. Year before was not quite as good. Smaller sample that year. 111 and third innings last year, 19.1% strikeouts, so didn't strike out as many. Pitched a better run numbers. Average pitcher. Average pitcher against a Red Sox lineup that is without their best player. He at least gains ground over where this projection has him. I'll say that much. 6,600, 7,400. You could throw a few darts at Paul Blackburn. Still prefer the Red Sox side of this one, though. Particularly with all these good lefties in the lineup, all these guys who are hitting for a ton of average, great on base percentages. It's just a good lineup, at least 1 through 6. You can argue about Christian Arroyo, Connor Wong, and Yu Chang at the bottom of the lineup, although I do like Wong's contact profile like we've talked about. But all these guys, the average, even with the 233, 250, 251 to bring up the bottom there, that's still a 278 average batting average. It's for those top 6. It's a 354 average on base percentage for the top 6. 201 average ISO. 125 average WRC plus. On average, the top 6 hitters in this lineup are creating runs 25% better than league average. That's very good. Jarren Duran's been good in the leadoff role, 3,900, 3,200, 318, 368, 515. Verdugo climbs up to the second spot. He had been projected down lineup, but with no Devers, it makes sense that he's back up top. I like that spot for him. Gets on base at a great clip, hits for average, a little bit of pop in his bat. Ahead of Justin Turner and Yoshida, who both have power, both have on-base skills, both have great hit tools. I really like this lineup. All of those guys can produce on their own. It's a collection of guys that are good individually, good as a group, can set the table for one another. They really work well together from 1 through 6. You get all the power from Duvall and Casas down the bottom of the lineup. Duvall, 7 home runs and 136 plate appearances, 15.2% barrels, 39.2% hard hits. Has been a major power hitter over seasons past. Casas, I've been calling for the big second half. I still believe 12 home runs on the season, a 202 ISO, 300 plate appearances, 13.7% barrels, 46.4% hard hits. Walks 13.3%, only strikes out 25.7. That's a high strikeout rate, but for a kid that is expected to be a good power hitter, you take that with a 13.3% walk rate. You don't even think about it. So I like the spot for Casas. The bottom 3 is take or leave, mix and match type guys that help pay for the top, but nobody in this lineup is expensive. Everybody below 4,600 or below on DK. Everybody 3,500 or below on FanDuel. Without their star, it takes them down a peg without Rafi Devers. But that's a playable group 1 through 6, especially for these prices against Paul Blackburn. So Blackburn gains a little bit of ground. The Red Sox are still a decent mid-range stacking option, I think, on this slate. And maybe they get a little bit sneaky given that there's no Devers in the lineup. Maybe you get people go away from them a little bit. So I like this one a lot in terms of Nick Pivetta, Red Sox bats, Paul Blackburn, A's bats way down. You can maybe squeeze a little bit of value out of the A's, given the targetable nature of what Pivetta's done contact-wise this year. But do you really want to get over the top with A's? Really? There's other spots. I mean, it's not. It's the A's and the Tigers are both in that like bad team for value pricing kind of a conversation, and the Tigers are getting the ownership, so that leads you to the Rays more, or to the A's rather, more naturally. I just think there's other spots that you can go to for fairly cheap hitting. And it's not a day where we have to break the bank to pay for pitching. So I think there's a lot of good value options on this board. Interesting slate coming up on 548. Let's take a quick look at the pitching board here. We'll jump back into the chat and see what's going on. Stephen Leibowitz says Red Sox lineup has plenty of bats that hit lefty. Casas smoking the ball. Blackburn 2022 All-Star because they had to have 1A. But still, yeah, that's why Rooker was on the team this year. Rooker had the All-Star for the month of April award for him this season. Let's see what else we got. Jake Swales loves a Nats mini reach around stack. All right, that's an interesting approach. Who doesn't love a good reach around? Jesus Luzardo, Logan Gilbert, Nick Pivetta. Not a bad top 3 there. I think you can go to any one of those guys. I love the spot for Pivetta for value. I really like the spot for both Gilbert and Luzardo. Even Luzardo going up against a strong lineup. If I was ranking those top 3 guys, I would probably put him 3rd, even though Pivetta doesn't project as well as him. Just a better matchup for Pivetta at a much better price point. If I had to say there's one flaw there, it's Luzardo's price point going up against the best of those 3 lineups in St. Louis. But I believe in the pitcher. I believe in the projection there. So I have plenty of Luzardo, plenty of Gilbert, good amount of Nick Pivetta. No issues with any of those guys, even as chalk, even at ownership. I don't mind getting there. I can kind of avoid McClanahan in this spot. I'll have some. 10,000 is a much better price on the FanDuel slate than 11.6 is on the DK slate. And he certainly projects competitively here. It's not like he doesn't project well. But I think there's there's plenty of reason to say, like, I'll leave him a little bit to the field if the field's going to him against the Rangers. Same time, if he's super low owned, I think it justifies a few additional stacks. But on a day where we're looking at a board that's like loaded with Drew Smyly and Griff Canning and Paul Blackburn and Dane Dunning and Matt Manning as a highly projected guy. Like it's an ugly day. Manning, I don't really buy that projection. It's not like it's a high projection. It's just an average projection on a light day for pitching, and the price is fine. I just think I would only really tangle with it on the DK slate at the 68 price. 85 is just too high for that pitcher on FanDuel. I'd rather just go to Miles Mikolas against the Marlins for a better projection, better price. Mackenzie Gore, you can take your dart throws with, but I don't really believe. I'm more on the Cubs bats side of that equation. I do believe in the Logan Webb spot, maybe a little bit higher than it's projected there. I don't love the price, but I expect that the price keeps people away from him pretty aggressively in a matchup in that Reds ballpark that's taken a little bit off the top for his projection. Very, very good at limiting home run potential. So maybe it's more he has a limiting effect on the upside for the Reds than he has a great start. But I think this is a realistic spot to have him on the board. I think he's got a realistic upside to be the best pitcher of the day, especially if Luzardo, Gilbert, and Pivetta go pop. I don't really see anybody outperforming Logan Webb necessarily. So I'm gonna definitely have him. I'm going to be willing to pay that price for him. Sonny Gray, probably also more enthusiastic about him than what that projection looks like, especially at price. There's major strikeout upside there for Gray, but he projects downboard a little bit by comparison to where we had Logan Gilbert against just a worse matchup. Outside of that, you're throwing darts with any of these other guys. Like you could throw a dart at Quinn Priester against that low-end Guardians lineup for cheap pricing. I think there's enough potential there. Jake asks thoughts on Grayson Rodriguez. He's been mowing in AAA. Yeah, I got to see it again, and I don't want to do it against the Dodgers. That's my thing. If he was coming back against even the low strikeout Guardians, or even like the Rangers, who can push a couple strikeouts more than the Dodgers do to an opposing team, but are a very good team, I think I'd be more interested. It's just those low strikeout rates for the Dodgers. That said, at price, it's okay to throw a few darts at. I just don't think that I'm going to do it. I tend not to tangle with the Dodgers too much unless it's a really high-end starter. Any concern if Pivetta might not be pitching? Ricky, I believe Pivetta is the... Oh, they've gone to Brennan Bernardino as the opener now. All right, so we're not a traditional start anymore for Pivetta. Let me just make sure they didn't change anything on us. It had been slated for a traditional start earlier. I assume he's coming in. Not seeing anything to the contrary. It does suck in that you won't get a quality start now. I'm just making sure that they didn't change anything on the back end. I think he's still the bulk reliever, which is what you had him as in that last appearance when he went 5 against this team, struck out 8. It takes a little bit of the luster off if I can't get the quality start on the FanDuel board. I'm not going to lie. On the DK board, I think there's a better upside, but not getting the pure start does suck on the FanDuel slate. Thank you for pointing that out. Good question there at the end of the show, Ricky Lee. Yeah, Bernardino's an opener there. Jake says, I'm trying to get ahead of the Rodriguez train and nobody's going to play him today. Yeah. I mean, I am always of the mind that I want to be ahead of the curve, not behind the curve when a guy's coming back, when a guy's in a good opportunity, et cetera, et cetera. I just don't know that I buy the opportunity that he's going to go out there and have a great game against the Dodgers. I think it's more likely that he goes out if he gives you 5 and change innings, pitching well, limits them 3-4 runs, handful of strikeouts, but not a great DFS start. I think that would be success for Grayson Rodriguez today. He's obviously got the ceiling to have a great start. I don't want to talk you out of his ceiling, but I think the mean is probably lower than what the ceiling is for sure. All right. I think that's the end of the show here. We're coming up on 5:55, so time for me to punch out, go build some lineups. I appreciate everybody hanging out. This was a blast to go through. I really like this slate. I think it's going to be a fun one. There's some really good contests out there too, by the way, if you guys haven't jumped in. I think FanDuel's got a $4 with a pretty decent prize pool today. Hopefully they keep running that back. I don't know why they've been going to this low top payout, high buy-in format lately. I think they're much better off when they go $4 with a decent prize pool and a big field. So I'm excited about that one. But yeah, somebody go win something tonight. Good luck out there, gang. I'll see you later.